14th, 2020. You can all rise. We have the flag behind me there for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
and to the republic which serves one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kelly, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Benton.
Here.
Fagione.
Here.
Lujan.
Present.
Riskevich. Sierra.
Here.
Stiganga.
here.
Tortel.
Here.
Vera.
And I'm here. Thank you. I'm
Kelly,
going to try to
Dewey's
monitor
here by phone.
I'm sorry?
Try to monitor the hands raised back and forth when we get to the question section. We only have one item on our agenda today. Nadia Esposito, the Executive Director of the Human Rights Commission. We have discussion, Human Rights Commission and recent activities. I just get a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved, Stiganga.
Second,
Kathy?
Lujan.
And Kevin Darian.
Second.
Gotcha. Okay, there was a meeting held after our legislative meeting last Thursday at 5:30 p.m. and ours ended just prior to that one, so a few of us were able to get on. There's some problems getting on to the, actually it was a Zoom meeting, not a Microsoft Teams, if I remember correctly. And it took me about 18 minutes to get on, finally got on through my regular iPhone. I know a few other legislators had difficulty. I think Tom Fagione, Katie, myself, and Barry were on. And Kathy, I don't know if you ever made it on or not. But,
No, I couldn't get on through the phone or through the computer.
Yeah, a number of us tried it. Like I said, I had difficulty. Finally, get on through my regular iPhone.
No.
But invited Executive Director Nadia Esposito today just to go over some of the things that's been going on with the Human Rights Commission and give us an update. Of course, we're going to have you back next month as well, too, for budget time.
Fun times ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to say, thank you for having at least one meeting there that we could jump on to, the 5:30 p.m. Thursday meeting. I know Fred, spoke with Fred as well as you in organizing that, so we thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I'll start by sharing that the meeting times has been discussed. It's actually discussed every single January. I feel like this January was a little bit different because, the legislators, you guys did request that we please change some of those times so that, that some of you can attend or all of you can attend. Unfortunately, it's what's worked for most of the group. I don't have a vote or a say in that. I just bring your concerns forward. But this year they did add that evening meeting. And I'm really sorry that a lot of you couldn't get on. I don't know what happened. I mean, there was only one link. All of the commissioners were able to get on it, no issues. I know that Legislator Cheney was on from the beginning. So I don't know, honestly, what, the glitch, whether it was the phone without the app or what it was. I know that sometimes the password, if it asks you for a password, it was on the email. And I know that some people aren't used to using, especially with the county, that most people use county team. Zoom we've been using from the beginning because it's a platform that works for most, if not all, of the commissioners. So hopefully the next time we do have an evening meeting, which we will, that won't be an issue. Maybe it'll be in person by then, which will be nice.
Yeah, like last Friday's meeting, you went over a few of the things you've been doing over the past couple of months through COVID. Things changed a lot for everybody, including your department.
Yes, my department is pretty much 98% virtual now. All of the meetings that I attend on a monthly basis, the coalitions, the task forces, they are all virtual. I still do host office times. I'm not seeing anyone in the office, but I am still here a lot of the week, but all of my work is virtual. I have done a few presentations in person. But I got to tell you, they're not comfortable either. I'm wearing a mask throughout the whole time, or I have a group of 40 people wearing masks for 2 hours, which is not comfortable either. So I think I'm probably going to stick to virtual until we are in a better place. But I did create a presentation. If it's okay that I share my screen?
Definitely. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to be here, and let me know if this works and you all see this.
Yep, I see it fine.
Perfect. I'm excited to be here because I feel like normally when we meet, it's during budget, and a lot of the conversation is kind of around programming and what is the commission up to. And in the past, I've created reports. This year, I created a report a little different, more of a presentation style. So this is the report that I will be, so that next month, I don't have to give you a program report since we're meeting this month, and next month we can focus on the budget piece of it. But I just created a small presentation to kind of go over who we are and what we've been up to for the last 12 months or so. So these are our commissioners. Many of you know many of the faces, if not all of the faces, but these are the 12, currently 11 volunteers that serve on our commission. Scott Wall on the bottom right there from Goshen is our most recent commissioner. Most of everyone else has been there, whether serving 3 years up to even 6 or 7 years, our most senior commissioners there. A little bit about the commission, but as you all know, established in 1970, we coordinate, facilitate education and awareness events, of course. We serve, groups based on what the New York State follows, so the DHR, the Division of Human Rights. So we kind of follow their language when it comes to the groups that we serve and represent. As far as the department role, so the way that we see my role, obviously I represent the department. So I serve as a primary source of information for constituents when they have questions or complaints that they're looking to file regarding human rights. And then I work with the Division of Human Rights to get those complaints filed. We coordinate and facilitate education and awareness in the community. That is a lot of what I do. So a lot of my work is doing presentations and workshops, but also, and right now really virtual conversations and consultations with agencies and businesses that are looking to work on things around equity, diversity, and inclusion. We also facilitate discussions and negotiations or conflict resolutions with individuals when they're having issues. Sometimes that could be a constituent that calls and is having an issue, and I would reach out to a business or an employer. So depending on the situation there, I am able to do a little bit of conflict resolution. Or again,
Have you found any increase or decrease or pretty much the same over the last couple of months during this COVID crisis?
So I would say a decrease. We have seen definitely a decrease in phone calls. The way I see it is people are really on survival mode. They're really looking to just kind of, survive, whether it's from COVID or the amount of people that have lost jobs or are worried about, paying bills and rent, etc. So we do not have as many calls. And not that I had a lot of calls to begin with, because, a lot of my work is outside of the office. But the calls have definitely decreased. And I am hearing that throughout. I have monthly meetings with other directors and commissioners of human rights throughout the state. And that has been pretty much the case all around, that they are seeing a decrease in those. And then I'm also
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Go right ahead, Kevin Daring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, no, I just want to know though, but does that, because you said that a lot of these individuals are probably in survival mode, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're needing services less. It's just simply that right now, for instance, they're not being kicked out of their apartments because they're protected by state law. There's a lot of other things that are happening that are maybe not happening, but there's still a need, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. So thank you for that point. So it's not that discrimination has gone away or has stopped or has even decreased. It's that folks are focusing on their basic needs before they're focusing on things like discrimination complaints. So survival mode, meaning they're focusing on making sure their children are fed, making sure they're, still employed or finding other options. Then focusing on filing complaints. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want anyone to think that there was less racism when in fact we're still seeing a lot of issues and challenges. So yeah, thank you for the clarifying.
Absolutely. So what I can say in regards to the climate that we're in right now is that more and more people are sharing stories of, racism specifically right now because of the movement that's happening. So what we are getting a lot more of is not formal complaints, meaning, here is a Division of Human Rights complaint form to fill out, but it's more people coming out, whether it's through my presentations or in meetings that I sit in, that are actually sharing their experience of discrimination. Many of them recent, many of them current, but also many of them from the past. So there is definitely an increase in folks who are empowered to share their stories of how they've been discriminated against. Yeah. Was there another question?
Nope, I guess you could continue. I'm still trying to monitor if any hands are raised. And
Nope.
I do see, yes, Legislator Fagione, I see your hand up there.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. Question, Anardi, you said not formal complaints have increased, but you're saying that racism has increased in Orange County? And where can you cite the factual evidence for that, please? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your question, Legislator Fagione. So not that it has increased, people feeling empowered to share their stories has increased. So what I said was that anecdotally during presentations, workshops, or during meetings, people feel more empowered to share things that they are currently going through or have gone through in the past. And there is no way. I don't keep track of, because those are not formal complaints, I do not keep track of people sharing their stories of racism.
Basically just lending their experiences over the years.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I literally had one person during a training share his first memory of, racism growing up, down south in the 50s. And well, he's 56. He shared that was the 50s. I got 7 years old, going into a bathroom and getting scolded by his mother. He's a black man because he went into the whites only bathroom. So those are the stories that come up, right? He wanted to share his first experience of it.
Yeah, things were definitely different in the South back then than they were up in the North, or the rest of the country too.
100%, absolutely, absolutely. And he shared how that stuck with him forever, right? And how that, really was the first time he ever had his eyes opened as a child to what is racism. So some of the signature workshops that I personally host and facilitate include diversity, equity, and inclusion. This one focuses on creative, inclusive spaces in the workplace. And I really go over in this workshop ways that the workplace can be inclusive, and really giving participants, tools on how to consider their own biases and privileges and how it impacts people around them, right? Whether it's the people they serve or the people they work with, and how we can all do our part in creative, more inclusive spaces. Cultural competence, beyond the buzzword, is more of an introductory conversation around cultural competence, and then the diversity and inclusion part, and then racism, racial equity, and privilege. This workshop really has been the one and only one that's been requested for the last 5 months or so, again, because of the climate that we're in right now. And what it really focuses on is just understanding systemic racial inequity, understanding both systemic and interpersonal racism, how it got to where we are today, giving some facts and data and statistics around how it impacts different communities, disproportionate things like, the health system. I go over things like, how Black folks, for example, died at different rates in COVID. Hispanic folks were infected at higher rates, and really what's behind that, right? And having deeper conversations around what that means. And then I go into interpersonal racism and how we can all do better at identifying our biases and learning more and educating ourselves a little bit better about what it is and how we can our individual role in achieving racial equity. So-
Legislator Benelli, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I had to unmute myself. And Audie, thank you very much for being here this afternoon.
You're so welcome.
And this presentation is very, very helpful. And looking at the signature workshops, you just mentioned that the racism and racial equality and privilege workshop was requested. Who is requesting these particular programs?
Yeah, great question. I've worked with the Ramapo Library Systems. I did 2 sessions for them, and they had about 160 people combined. So they did theirs for their entire library systems, not just Orange County. Multiple agencies, including RECAP. I just presented at the Mental Health Association, had me come in and also do their all-staff training, United Way. So some nonprofits and agencies like those that I normally work with and that know the work that I do. There was a couple of coalitions. One specifically is the Newburgh and Poughkeepsie, so they were combined. Healthy Latinx, Black and Latinx Coalition. They requested that training. There was a group out of Valley Central called the Valley Central Parents for Social Justice that requested that I come in and do this for community members. So I did that training as well for them. So a lot of agencies like that, but it's really what happens is I do one and then there's somebody who says, oh, can you come and do this for my
Word of mouth, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Monroe Woodbury School District, I did all of their administrators as well. The district attorney's office invited me to come in and do the training as well. So it's word of mouth.
And while we're still on the workshops, one final question. Is the creation and the ideas and the concepts of these 3 workshops, which you're calling the signature workshops, is that in collaboration with the commission itself and the commission members? Or is that something that you're independently creating on your own?
Yep. So I independently create those. So the request comes in and, they're really, as much as they are, I can adjust them to the needs of the agency. They're pretty much standard. So the diversity and inclusion and even the racism one, they're pretty much presentations and workshops that I've created. And then the commission
Thank you.
mostly attended at one or another point, have mostly attended them.
Okay, I see. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Legislator Fagione, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Chairman. Legislator Benelli answered one of my questions. And just to follow up on that, Anade, with these workshops that you present, there is no sign off. You're saying the commission does not approve or disapprove any of that? Is there any oversight as to what it is that you are presenting?
No, I mean, I think like with any other department head, I'm given the trust to bring forward correct information and the right data, in representing the county and in representing the commission. So they entrust
So
me.
you're saying so let me ask you this then to follow up on that. Do you believe that Orange County government has been established or inherited a system or a systemic racial problem?
So I think like any other government, we have an inherited racial disparity, like any other large system within our country that we need to look at and assess and make sure that we are working towards racial equity.
So you say that is true and it exists today throughout Orange County?
100%, yes.
Do you believe in the critical race theory?
Not
Just a simple yes or no question.
Not fully, no.
Do you believe in the 1619 Project?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you support the U.S. Constitution?
Mr.
Yes.
Fagione, I'm going to ask you to cease your questions at this point. This is not
She's not on the stand here. This is her presenting her overview of her department. Her personal views are her personal, her professional views are her professional. But I think this goes outside of the line of questioning as to what her overview for her department is. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, counsel. I just needed a little background information. So I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I have right now. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Antoinette, for that.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I don't see a hand raised, but is Kevin Darien?
Yes, sir. Sorry, my phone doesn't have the. I need to
okay.
update it for the hand raise for the
Gotcha.
phone. So yeah, no, I had a two-part question. Well, one question and one statement. One was really geared towards the trainings themselves. So you said that the district attorney's office is providing some of these trainings. So they deemed that in the climate of everything that's going on, they believed that this was important because of what's going on. So they felt that there was a possibility to learn about racism and racial equity and privilege, the need for diversity and equality. They recognize that in the district attorney's office. Is that correct? And so you're doing trainings there.
So I did one training for their entire staff on racism, 100%. I was contacted by them. I didn't reach out to them. I normally don't reach out to anyone. They call me. And they were specifically looking for anti-bias training. And after explaining to them what I train on and how it's important to start the conversation on systems and inclusion and racism, and then move forward towards working on their individual biases, they agreed and invited me to come in for the understanding racism training. That is correct. And I had a conversation with the district attorney right after that. So him and I were on the same page. He knew what I would be talking about, and he was present on one of the sessions because it was held in person. So to make sure we were social distance, and that he got every one of his staff members there, we held two sessions, 2.5-hour sessions.
And considering the current climate and everything that's going on in the country and across the globe, would you say that these are the kind of trainings that all staff, for example, in Orange County government and beyond, would be able to benefit from?
Absolutely. There is never a single training that I complete where someone doesn't say, why aren't we talking more about this? Why aren't we providing this for everyone? Because it is information that does benefit folks. Yeah.
Thank you. And again, just kind of steering away from the previous comments, but I do want to say I don't think in the time that I've been at Legislature, and mind you, I haven't been here very long, but I don't think I've ever seen the line of questioning that I saw a moment ago. So I hope that we can avoid that in the future and not have those kind of attacks, because it didn't really seem appropriate. But thank you.
Legislator Cheney, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. First off, Audie, thank you very much for giving some of our legislators an insight through your meeting a couple weeks ago. It was very eye-opening. I got a better appreciation for what the commission does, and I think that I'd encourage all my fellow legislators to avail themselves of that opportunity when it comes again in the future. Just a couple questions, as long as we're digging down into these the workshops. Have you had any requests from private businesses to do any workshops for them?
The most current one was Walden Savings Bank. Okay. So yes, although those are few and apart, I don't get many of those now.
And what was the nature of that, the training that they requested?
Same thing. They wanted to start with the diversity and inclusion training because they would like to start their leadership. So they want me to come in the next month or so to talk about inclusion and diversity. Start first with their leadership and then kind of work their way down to line staff.
Yeah. I believe at the meeting the other day, you also said that you had done training sessions for Senators Skoufis and Metzger's offices.
Yes.
What was the training you provided to them?
So the training that I provided to them, and that was actually just last week, was specifically on systemic racism. So systemic and interpersonal. I think that was a full 2-hour block. So that one was on understanding systemic and interpersonal.
Okay. And none of these organizations that you listed are in any way pay a fee for these training sessions or workshops, correct?
So the answer to that is some of them do, some of them don't. So the commission has decided that they do not want to charge for these professional development trainings. We all see it as a service that the county provides, just like any other department provides. You know, my department's different because I think I'm the only department providing training, mostly around these things. But we don't want to, the commission decided they don't want to really charge for this information because it's vital and important. However, we did add some language around if any organization would like to make an honorarium, that they are more than welcome to. I am often asked, is there a fee? And then my response is, we have a suggested honorarium if you would like to donate towards the Human Rights Commission Scholarship Fund, because that's where it would go. But that outside of that, the answer would be no. So I think maybe 3 have paid honorariums. And then there was an event that I was asked to be a keynote speaker for earlier this year where I was given a $1,000 honorarium for speaking. And that went towards the commission as well. But most places, no, I do not charge a fee for my trainings.
Okay. And the honorariums received always go into the scholarship fund?
Always, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my one question has to do with the training for the senators' offices, and whether that was something that the state shouldn't be providing to them as opposed to the county. I mean, is that type of presentation workshop available from the state, to your knowledge?
I am not sure. I know that my type of training is mostly, if not solely, done by private consultants and private businesses, but I don't know if the state does that. I accepted the request because, you know, for the most part, I accept requests of trainings when someone reaches out and says, hey, you know, we'd like to provide some information for our staff.
Right. Understood.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Chairman.
Legislator Stiganga, did you have a question? I saw your hand up a moment ago.
I'm going to revert till the end of the presentation because it's not specifically about the presentation. It's a couple other things as well as the presentation. So I'm going to let Anori finish before I ask. Thank you.
All right.
Should I continue?
Audie, please go ahead.
Thank you. So to give you some ideas of numbers, and this is between October 2019 and August 2020. I go with those dates because the last time I reported to you was in October of 2019. So we held 55 sessions of education and awareness events, and that reached over 3,300 participants. And those sessions include anything from the presentations that I personally give to the conferences that the commission holds. And I'll go over, I have a small list of those so that you can have some ideas of what that looks like. 107 community partner collaboration, and that includes the community meetings that I attend, the different coalitions, the different when a community member a community partner calls me and reaches out and they're looking for consultation or guidance around an issue around discrimination within the workplace, et cetera. So that includes those contexts as well. And then constituent calls that I answered was 168 for this year. So some of the partners that have, remained steadied in our collaboration are listed right here. And that includes some of the nonprofits that I've mentioned in the past. I work very closely with many of these folks, sometimes one time, sometimes multiple times throughout the year. But this is just a very small list so that you can see some names of the agencies that I work with, agencies or entities that I work with. but not an exhaustive list.
Mhm.
Some of the education and awareness events that I was mentioning, that includes some film screenings. So this year we, for example, screened Death by Delivery, which is a film that focuses on the disparity of maternal infant deaths amongst Black women. We also held a conflict resolution training called Responding Not Reacting, Being Your Best in Difficult Conversations. That was, really successful, really well. That was capped at 50 people, and we were at capacity with a wait list of 40. That is one of the events that the commission hosted. And just so that we understand, so when I say commission hosted, I'm referring to the consultants that we bring in with the consultant fund that we get through the legislation. So when we ask for, let's say, the $20,000 that we ask for every year, that fund goes towards bringing in consultants to bring in the expertise and information that we present. Other trainings included, so throughout the first few months of COVID, the virtual presentations that I was bringing in, it was a little different than what we normally do. They were all focused around, obviously, the COVID-19. So we held a 3-part series on community resources where I brought in, I want to say it was 12 different partners to come in and talk about resources for our community. We had over 400 people attend those, and then the number keeps going up as people watch, because the beauty of virtual world that we're learning is you get to record these things and then people have access to them, at their fingertips. So that was really well attended. I also did something on homelessness in Orange County where, we had Commissioner Miller presenting the Newburgh Ministries honor and the Housing Resource Center. We were talking about, this was, I don't know if many of you remember, there was a homeless man who was assaulted in the city of Newburgh back over the spring. And then that just created a lot of media attention. And then Channel 12 News had invited me and a couple of other people from the city of Newburgh to speak on homelessness. And the piece was a mess. The piece was just not what it should have been. So in response to the poor job the media did, I put together a panel to really talk about homelessness in Orange County and the resources and what are we doing here in Orange County to address it. All of these videos, by the way, are available on the Orange County website. You would have seen them. I send out reminders so that people know where to go find them. We did a Know Your Rights, meaning a Know Your Legal Rights with Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, both in English and in Spanish. And that was during COVID-19, where, they really talked about things like housing rights. And if you lose your job, what do you do? Where do you go? If you're on temporary assistance, what does that mean? What is that, at risk? So we held that. The more anti-racism work. And then another one that we held was the We Are All in This Together, Inequities in Our Community During a Crisis Forum. And that was also, I invited 5, maybe 6 experts representing different communities that are disproportionately affected and how to really talk about how they're affected even more so disproportionately during a crisis. And that included Anne-Marie Maglione from Office for the Aging. It included someone representing LGBTQ, someone representing folks who live in poverty, someone representing the Black community, the immigrant community, to really help give information so people can really understand how these communities are impacted disproportionately during a crisis. So some of those are outside of what I do on talking about diversity and inclusion and racism. Some of those are the conversations that we host as well. And again, that is not an exhaustive list.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead, Kevin Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, I had the chance to look at quite a few of these, particularly in the early months of COVID. And I can tell you, even as someone who's worked in the nonprofit world with mental health and substance abuse and in different, organizations, it was a major learning experience. I'm sure that community members that looked at this really learned quite a lot, particularly around, where to get information about housing, so like different organizations that they reach out to. So it was very, very, very helpful. So I'm really glad that was that collaborative effort occurred, because honestly, with the fog of everything that was going on with COVID, this was really, really important. And I just want to just touch, just very, very big on the Spanish piece. We really had a very large issue where we had a lot of people who just simply didn't understand or didn't have the information in Spanish, and that was very, very helpful. So I just wanted to, emphasize that these trainings were invaluable. They were just really, really great for everything that was going on. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. Should I continue, Chairman
Yes,
Vero?
please.
Okay. So these are just some of the, just a few pictures, because, no presentation is complete without some pictures. So myself alone, I facilitated 33 workshops, and then I shared some comments that people, some of the feedback that people shared. Someone said, I'm reading this for the purpose of those of you who can't see my screen. Inauri's examples were realistic and applicable. They highlighted the unconscious biases that we all hold. I am so happy Inauri came to speak with us. I know that everyone in this room was touched by this content. This was specifically a training I did for United Way, when we can have more than 10 people in a room, which I miss those days. This is just a flyer of the We're All in This Together, and it highlights the folks that were speaking at the event. Other feedback include, please accept my sincere appreciation for the outstanding presentation you made to the NPHBLC yesterday. That is the Newburgh and Poughkeepsie Healthy Black Latino Coalition. Thank you for helping us become more aware of the problems and the way we can help solve them. Someone else said, thank you, Inaudi. This was extremely helpful. All of your extraordinary efforts providing such invaluable information over the past few weeks have been extremely appreciated. Very proud to be part of our county. And that one actually was specifically regarding to a couple of the ones like Legislator Lujan shared around COVID. Just a couple of flyers of some of our events. And then a couple more images, our Human Rights Awards, which will look very different this year since we'll be doing it virtually. There is our 2019 Human Rights Scholarship recipient with her mother. This was a picture of the screening that we did, Death by Delivery, and some of the panels, experts that we had speaking of the issue on the disproportionate numbers of maternal deaths. This is a list here of the virtual forum we did on community resources and who it held. We had presentations on resources about food insecurity, housing rights, financial assistance, domestic violence services, mental health needs, health insurance, and community support. And then the picture on the right there is the responding, not reacting, being your best in difficult conversations. And that's my presentation.
Very well done. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you. I hope it wasn't too lengthy and it was just enough.
No, not at all. Information is powerful. We all need that.
Great. Thank you.
Kathy,
Mr. Chairman. Sorry. Go ahead.
Again.
She had her hand up and I spoke already, so I'll go after her.
Okay. Kathy, you had some comments you want to save to the end of the
Well,
presentation?
Anori, thank you so much for coming today. You know that I've done a lot of the meetings that I could make in the past couple of years as far as that. And I just really want to reiterate, I understand that you don't have any say on these meetings, but with the way our culture and our environment is right now, this is a very serious topic. And I'm still having a very hard time why the commissioners are not willing to actually do anything, even if they switch to a different Thursday of the month at the same time, so that they can allot the legislators who want to be involved, who are here, that are looking to help and support, and are basically the ones that are making the decisions behind your budget and the things that you do, why they would not want us involved in their meetings. I don't know if we can contact, rather than going through you, if you can supply their emails and allow us to contact them personally. There's got to be a way that they can change so that we can be involved.
So I think we'd have to probably funnel it through Fred as the chairman.
Yeah, I mean, they all see your emails. I definitely send them. And the last couple of times I've made sure that Fred responds as well. I want to say on their behalf, it's not that they don't want you there. If anything, they hear my concerns when I say this would be easier for me if you were all here. It'd be nice to have a team to support me when I'm answering these questions. So I know that they want you all there. So many of them are executive directors or have full-time jobs, and they can't. So they look at their schedules, and literally we've looked at, how about this Thursday of the month, and someone has another board meeting or someone has one of their meetings and then they can't switch it. Or it's that, well, 5 of them can't and then 6 can't. So it really has become they can't find something that works for all of them. And part of that is that before we do, one of the first things we tell them when someone is interested in becoming a commissioner is we meet on the first Thursday of every month. We've lost people who can't join us on the first Thursday of every month. So that's one of the commitments, that they have to be available for that. So I want to make sure that as much as I can, the sentiment is not that they don't want you there. If anything, they understand the value in having you all there, because they also don't, I'm the middle person. I have to come back and advocate for a lot of things. They wish they could do that for themselves as well.
Well, that was why I said rather than going through you,
Right.
if we're able to contact them directly. I mean, every single one of us is busy and we find the time and so forth. So if they, to me, I just look at it, if they really wanted us to be involved, they would find some other way than just one meeting out of 12 meetings for a year. And I have to say, I was really upset, and I spoke to the majority leader, Katie, and everybody else. I couldn't log on, and I've been on Zoom. All my computers are set up for Zoom, and the password was not being accepted any which way, and there was no way to get a hold of anybody to say that. Even on my phone, everything's all Apple on top of, I tried doing it through my regular PC, and it
Right.
just would not allow. So, the one meeting that we really wanted to be at, because it's the only one we've been allotted, I couldn't log in. So it was very disappointing as far as that.
I hear you, and I understand the frustration. I also want to add that they were under the impression in January, when they voted this calendar, that it would allow you 3 meetings, since historically the legislators meet 2 different months throughout the year at a different time. So when we chose the September meeting, it was actually with the thought of that there were 2 other meetings that you had. I think February or March was the
April's Youth and Government.
That's it, right? So there was one more, I guess, that you do on a different evening, possibly. So when this was voted on in January, it was before the calendar change. So they didn't know until, I think, May, that you would only be able to attend for 1 meeting.
And even 2 out of 12 is not too good a percentage.
Of course. Just want to make sure that their intentions was 3, not 1.
Majority Leader Benelli, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had this discussion for over a year now, and Anoudi's absolutely right. She has gone to the commission every time we've asked. I personally sent things to the commission asking them to reschedule their meeting, allowing legislators to be able to partake. And it's perplexing for me, because the few times that I have been able to attend because schedules have changed, they're very, very gracious, and they're very welcoming, and they're very grateful that we're there. And they do ask for our input, and we do have a really good dialogue. So I don't understand why they can't sit down and take a look at the calendar and say, we need to make this adjustment, because they've all agreed. Whoever is present at the meetings I've attended, and I know John Vero's been with me at some of the meetings. Barry was on the last call, and there was an in-person meeting maybe last year that Kathy was able to come. And they were very, very gracious. There are other there's, like I mentioned to you, the whole second week of the month, we do not have any scheduled meetings. So if you want to call a meeting at 2:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon, which seems to be a very good time for them, that's an excellent week for them to take a look at. And we're not getting the impression that they're not even trying. And it's very, very frustrating because we do need a partnership and we don't have it, and we can't have it if we both meet at the same time. Now, at the meeting, the virtual meeting that you had a few weeks ago, you did mention before we closed that you would be revisiting, or the commission would be revisiting that come January. And here again, if you want a letter, I realize and I recognize you're in the middle of this. And when I get caucus members, because if I'm speaking on behalf of my caucus, I'm always saying that it's the commission that has to make that change. You cannot make that change. I understand that. But I just need your help. And, how do we get through to them? Because quite frankly, this is ridiculous. It's embarrassing. So we can talk offline about that, but we stand ready to try to be a partner with you, but we can't if we have conflicts like that. So thank you for your time and thank you for your efforts, because I know you've tried.
Well, when it comes time to approve the commissioner's reappointment, first question we ask, are you available the second Thursday of the month? Of course, it could take years to turn that around that way, but.
It may take a little
Well,
longer.
it doesn't
It would be
even
a
have
slow
to be a
process,
Thursday.
Personally, I can't the second Thursday of the month. I'm sorry, but we can look at a different day that week.
Lujan.
Okay, Kevin Darian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to kind of continue a little bit on that discussion, we had also in the past had more frequent meetings in the evenings, and maybe that would also be something that we could revisit when we start looking at, what our schedules are going to be. Perhaps we could also have more in the evening, which would allow us to be able to attend, one or two more of these. Getting away from that, the other thing I want to talk about is I know that you have a few upcoming partnerships. I think it was with the Jewish Federation that they're going to be doing some things that are really focused on KJ and anti-Semitism. Could you just take a moment to talk a little bit about that, if you could? It just feels
of
like
course.
with everything, the discussions that we're having right now around the RFP, I just feel like it's just very timely. And I just think that, if we could just talk a little bit about that would be very helpful.
Yes, of course. So part of what I do every year is I take a look at what topics do I need to cover, what topics did I cover last year, what's trending right now that I need to make sure is relevant for us to be talking about. They always seem to be the same topics, right? So I always make sure I have something on anti-Semitism, something on racism, something on LGBTQ issues, and then a couple of others. So last year, when I first took office, right, so 3 years ago, I brought in the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, to do a training on anti-Semitism and bias. It didn't feel like enough. So the next year, I brought in someone from the Holocaust Museum and Center for Studies. And she did an excellent job at covering anti-Semitism, but only had a couple of slides on, specifically anti-Semitism for the Hasidic community. I had been in contact with someone from the KJ community to talk about how to come in and present on, what I have this vision of a Know Your Neighbor series. So I was going to have a Know Your Neighbor series where, this person would come in and talk about, the KJ community and kind of try to bridge gaps as far as our neighbors and myths and facts, so to speak. So with that idea in mind, I reached out to the Jewish Federation and said, I'd love to have a conference on anti-Semitism and include you guys as a partner that would be kind of as a follow-up from last year's anti-Semitic training conference that we held, which had about 250 people present, including some of the legislators here on the call. And our idea was to have a full-day conference, and we would be bringing in partners from KJ and then also scholars on the Satmar community and talk about the history, etc. Obviously, we can't have a full-day conference, so I've been planning this since January of this year, back and forth. We obviously had to put it on hold because of COVID, so it kind of led to this virtual series. So we are holding a 3-part series. The first part will be, we have 2 scholars that will be coming and giving us the history of KJ and the Satmar, specifically religion. And then we are going to have a session, which we had to pull because the person is ill, where we are going to have, and that date is to be determined until she's no longer ill. It's a husband and wife who live in the KJ community and are comfortable in talking about their experience as being parts of the KJ community. And then the third session is specifically a conversation between myself and Rabbi Rubenstein from the Jewish Federation to talk about anti-Semitism and some action steps. How can we come together as a community, and what can we do to combat that? So
the goal will be to essentially kind of have some possible solutions and way forward. Then is that correct?
Yeah, but also to engage
discussion.
The community. Correct. So it's meant to have a community discussion where, it's also important for us to talk about anti-Semitism in the mainstream community and how it affects all Jewish folks, not just the Satmar community or Hasidic community, and then to have some action and have breakout groups so that the community members who are present can talk about their thoughts with facilitators and can talk about, action steps and what can we do better to address our own, biases and, anti-Semitic behaviors or thoughts, etc. And then as a community, how can we come together? So yeah, that would be day 3. Right now, day 2, but technically it's supposed to be day 3.
Thank you, Director Esposito. I wanted to, again, the only reason I wanted to bring this up was because as I don't want to assume how much you're aware about the RFP that we've been discussing, but this, I think that there are a lot of legislators, myself included, that are very interested to see, what could come of it. This obviously seems like it's very much linked to that. It's definitely something that I think that if my colleagues, if all of us, if we want to be a part of this, it could definitely something that we could all definitely benefit from and take some steps in the right direction. So I just wanted to highlight that. I've already registered. I'm going to definitely be on at least the 2 of them I think I saw. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So far
Majority Leader Benelli,
we mentioned 2 because we lost our presenter. So when we have our presenters back for that other one, we will make sure to set it up.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That's the one that you said he got ill, correct? My apologies.
Yes.
Yes, Majority Leader Benelli.
Thank you very much. For those of you that know, and I believe most of my caucus are aware, we have been reviewing the applicants that answered the RFP for the diversity initiative proposal. We've had one meeting, and in the second meeting, we actually invited an Audie to partake in the question and answer period with the people that had presented proposals. So she's been very helpful. So she is fully aware of what is going on and how we proceed with all of this. And she was very, very helpful in that second interview where she was partaking along with Alan Sorensen from the Department of Planning. So I thank her for that, and I probably should have mentioned that before. But these things that you're doing are very, very good. But Legislator Lujan, you mentioned that they were going to be, working towards a solution. First of all, if you know anything about anti-Semitism, there's not going to be a solution. And I don't mean, I'm being realistic. It's a matter of how do you get an understanding between communities and a respect? And how do you learn to, just like in any other community, live in harmony with the diverse issues that you're all facing within your communities? Because each and every one of our communities are very, very unique. So, and that's something that I know Audi is working towards, and I appreciate her partaking with those interviews because it was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I do want to piggyback, and I don't believe in terms like eradicating racism, we're not doing that in our life.
You don't.
Right? In essence, I see my role as planting seeds and hoping that when folks have access to the information, they can kind of then do some critical thinking and consideration about others and really raising empathy and raising understanding and awareness about others' plight, right? And the issues and injustices and that others experience. So yeah, I completely agree. When we talk about action and we talk about, finding solutions, we look at finding solutions on an individual level and what can I do as an individual to do better, right? Or what can I take back to my community or to my organization? That's something that I always talk about in my understanding racism trainings is what can you take back even if it's a small something, what are your takeaways so that you can help your organization work towards racial equity? Because there's so much work to be done that, it's impossible to solve in one sitting or ever. But
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chairman Brush, I see your hand raised.
I just want to make sure I'm unmuted. Yeah, just with respect to the diversity study, I know the three party leaders, majority leader, minority leader, and legislator Amo have been reviewing them quite extensively, and we discussed that over 4 years ago, and it's finally coming to fruition. So I think that's the place where we start, and then we expand into the racism and other areas of the county with the tensions down in at the western end of the county and Middletown, with the Falun Dafa and Falun Gong. I think that's where we start, and then we expand on it, because we only really set 100,000 aside now. But I think it's even more than anti-Semitism to an extent. So it's tensions that have happened for years down there. It's a matter of growth, Majority Leader Benelli talked about including an Audi in that discussion. So it is ongoing, and I think we start out and expand on what we've already begun. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Chairman. And Audi, is that pretty much your presentation?
that is, I do want to give a little tip on the pronunciation of my name in case anyone finds this helpful. So when you think of my name, Einaudi, think of the belly button and Audi, and then it'll help you remember.
No, I can't get that image away,
I'm so sorry. I know. Believe me, I don't ever want to talk about belly buttons. But since I know many of you don't use my name often, when you do, it's Einaudi.
Thank you for that.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Any other questions?
Much. I do appreciate. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the invitation. I had explained to Legislator Vero that I'd love to be a part of these meetings a few times a year, so I can keep you updated as to the events that we're having, so that you don't feel like you have to wait a year to hear what we're up to. So please, if you can't come to my commission, I will gladly come to you. And
right.
I won't always have pictures and reports, but I promise to at least keep you updated on what I'm up to and the events and things that we're hosting. And if anyone has, wants to meet with me personally or have a conversation about anything, let me know. I'm very reachable and I'd love to talk. So.
Well, we'll see you next month, the budget.
Yes.
Chairman, I have one more question.
Go right ahead, Kathy.
You guys did the Zoom on Thursday night. By any chance, did you tape it so us who couldn't get on can actually look at the tape of the meeting?
We did not tape it, Legislator Stiganga. I am sorry.
I would make sure from now on, if you're doing the virtual, that you tape it, because then you can send it to us, and if we can't make it, at least we can see what's going on. Thank you.
You're welcome. I will bring that to the commission.
Okay, Kelly, just for the record, I want to note that Legislator Skevich has joined us shortly after roll call. He wasn't present for roll call, but he's been here most of the meeting.
Yes, I have that.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
In that case, I guess we're pretty much finished there. I just need a motion to adjourn in a second.
I'm sorry, Legislator Vero, one more thing I just thought of.
Oh, certainly.
I'm so sorry. I just realized that at the training that I did last week on understanding racism, there was a legislator present. Legislator, I don't ever remember how to say his last name, Anastakis?
Michael Anagnostakis.
Anagnostakis, thank you. He was present. So if anybody wants the ins and outs of my training, he sat through a 2-hour training on racism, and he will give you, as many details as he remembers, I'm sure. But he was there. So.
Okay, we'll quiz him on that.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much again, Audi. Motion to adjourn in a second.
So moved, Lujan.
Okay, Audi, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Esposito.
Thank you, everyone.